Today we're gonna make a bourbon pecan pie. It has all the toasty nuttiness of the pecans with that like soft brown sugar filling and just a hint of bourbon. And I have a secret trick that I use to make sure that it comes out perfectly every single time. Okay, so let's get into making this pie. Right now I've got my butter in a heat-proof bowl, and I'm gonna put that over my simmering water. I have all my other ingredients ready to go. While this is melting, we're gonna toast our pecans. So just go ahead and put these on a baking sheet. I have the oven preheated to 350, which I have it preheated because we're gonna par bake our pie crust for this after we make the filling. So I'm gonna pop these in. We're gonna talk about like every 5 minutes, just kind of rotate them, toss them about a bit, and make sure that they're evenly toasted and nice and golden brown. Okay, so our butter is melted. We're gonna take it off the bain-marie. We're gonna whisk in all of our other ingredients. So we've got our dark brown sugar, put that in there, and then salt. I'm gonna go ahead and get that in here. The reason you combine it this way is because you wanna wait until the butter cools a little bit before you add all of those eggs. You don't wanna cook the eggs right now. We want them to gently cook later. I've got corn syrup, so I like to measure my corn syrup and sticky things into plastic wrap, and that way all I do is kind of poke a hole in the bottom and then squeeze it out. Okay, whisk that in. Alrighty, this is vanilla. And then I'm just gonna add my eggs. So, boop. Just be careful so they don't splash out, but you're just gonna whisk them in there. So that's our main ingredients, and then we've got our bourbon. Obviously that's optional, you don't have to put that in there. It's delightful without it, but you know, maybe I lived in the South too long and I just like bourbon and all the things. All right. So you could go ahead and put your pecans in here and pour this into a par-baked crust, but I like to take the extra step of heating my filling over a bain-marie or simmering water, and then bringing it up to 130 degrees, and that way it almost makes baking the whole thing foolproof. It thickens it a bit. I think it creates a nice luscious filling, as opposed to sometimes they separate on you. So we're gonna put it back on the bain-marie here. I'm gonna switch to a spatula, and you don't have to diligently watch it or anything. I'm gonna put it on low heat, and then I'm just gonna stir this every now and again. We're gonna use a thermometer and check the temperature, but you could also just wait until it looks thickened and shiny and glossy. Okay, so our pecans are out of the oven. They're nicely toasted. We are gonna bake the final pie at like 275, so they're not gonna get too much more toasty, so you wanna make sure they're nice and golden brown and they smell nice and roasted. I'm gonna let these cool for a minute, and then we're going to chop them. All right, so I've got my pie dough here. I am using a vodka all butter pie crust, and I'll link up there to that so that you can make that as well. I like to make them ahead of time. You can freeze them and then thaw them in the fridge. So we've got our dough. Just put a little bit of bench flour on the surface. I like to flour my rolling pin and not necessarily the top of my dough unless it's sticking. And then we're just gonna work really quickly. And we just wanna get this to, around 1/4 of an inch, maybe slightly thinner. So as you can see, I'm just rotating my pie, my crust, and then I'm using the heel of my hand to roll it outwards. This allows me to apply more specific pressure. Okay, so we've got our dough right here, and I'm gonna chill it in the pie dish. So you can roll it on your rolling pin to transfer and then roll it back, but sometimes I find that just the pressure of that is too much, and so I prefer a folding technique. Just fold it gently, grab your pie dish, place it on top of your pie dish, and just unfold it. There's really nothing, surprising about this method except that it works a little bit better. And then we're gonna let it chill like this. I don't want to force it to do anything it doesn't want to do at this moment. I don't want to cut it. And I'm gonna chill this while I show you what to do with the pecans. So I've got our pecans, and you could definitely chop them with a knife, but if you're lazy like me and you don't want to break out a cutting board and a knife and all of that nonsense. Then take a plastic bag or a pastry bag or something of the sort. Put your pecans in here. And then we're just gonna beat it. So obviously this is like one of my favorite things to do with my rolling pin is just smack things around. You get some big pieces, you get some small pieces, you get some, you get a nice variety. And we pour them into our bowl where they're gonna await the filling. And that's it. Nothing is dirty. Oh yes, it's heating up. The last thing we do before we part break our crust is just prepare the parchment that's gonna go inside. And if you've watched me before, you know exactly what I'm gonna do. But I'm just gonna smoosh it all up, make a nice little ball. Make sure you get, just really kind of smash it. And what this does is it kind of loosens up the parchment. And it's going to make it easier for us to line our pie crust without having, little pokey holes and sides and, no drama lining, right? So this is gonna, now it's all flexible and pliable and we're ready. Without further ado, we've got our pie crust here, she's chilled. And we're just gonna make sure that she's nicely lined in the dish, okay? Make sure that there's no, it goes into all the kind of corners, but we're gonna trim some of the bits that are a little bit longer and uneven so we get a nice even crust all the way around. But you'll see that the size is perfect for a 9-inch, 9.5. You could probably stretch it to a 10. And then we're gonna roll it and part bake it. So I'm gonna roll in. All I'm doing is making a little, I'm just gathering as I go, trying to make it as even as possible. Okay, all right. So we've got our pie crust that has been corralled and rolled. I am a huge fan of just the traditional kind of pleated edge. So I am just going to, working quickly, I'm gonna move around. I am taking these two fingers and then I'm kind of pushing this one inside. I put this finger in this one's hole for the next go round. All right, I am gonna chill this just quickly because I really wanna make sure that it is, it's nice and cold. So I'm gonna throw this in the fridge really fast. So we've let our pie crust just chill just briefly. I mean, it really only took like 5 minutes, 10 minutes because it was already cold. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees convection. We have our little parchment that we are going to place in here. Okay. And now we've made it easy with all of the crumpling. And then we've got our beans. And we're just gonna pour it in. We're gonna pop this in our preheated oven for about 10-15 minutes. And then we're gonna check and see if it's started to cook on the bottom. And then we'll pull this off. If we pull it off too soon, then the bottom will puff, which honestly, who cares? You're putting filling in it, but whatever. So while our pie crust bakes, we are still cooking our filling. So don't necessarily forget about it. Right, so we've got our parchment. We're just gonna grab our parchment and do all the beans inside. Remove it. You can see that the pie crust is still not done on the bottom. It might still puff a little bit down there. That's okay. We're gonna put filling inside, so it doesn't matter. But I'm gonna pop this back in the oven. We're gonna continue cooking it until it's a nice golden brown all the way around. Probably an additional 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so our pie crust is out. You can see that it did puff up a little bit, but that's fine. We're just gonna poke it down. So you can see that my filling is thicker, it's shiny, and really quite beautiful. I can smell a little bit of the bourbon, which is exciting. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pecans and put those in, stir those together, like so. I lowered my oven to 275. Which is what we're gonna bake our pie at. You wanna add the filling to a warm crust, so you can kind of pop it back in there and warm it up a little bit. This will keep your crust crispy even with a liquidy filling. So we're gonna pour our filling in here. So I'm gonna put this back in the oven at 275, and we're gonna check it in like, 20 minutes. What we're waiting for is for it to puff, and then when you press on it, you want to feel a little resistance. You don't want it to be hard because you've overbaked it and it's going to be like a rock. And you don't want it to be loosey-goosey either. You want it to, firm, like give you resistance when you touch it. So I'm gonna pop this in and we'll just keep checking. So we've got our pecan pie. It's ready. You can see that not only has it puffed, but when I press on it, it has a little bit of resistance. You can kind of like Jell-O in a way. Okay, so we're gonna let this cool completely, and then we are going to give her a try. The moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to cut. Oh, it's a nice crispy crust. Oh yes, yes it is. Just get in there, just enough chit chat. Oh my gosh. The crispy, chewy pecans and the soft brown sugar filling, like a hint of bourbon. That is divine. One more. I earned it. Totally.